that point, it's like, what does religion have to even do with it? Like,
Well,
it's
that's my point.
because
So
the
why?
words that we're using ignorantly in our meager understanding of, like, you know, history, geopolitics, and all of that, it has nothing to do with what you're critiquing, because we don't even know it's not a religion that anyone's ever talking about when they say those words. I promise you, the religion doesn't even come up.
Mm,
The only context in from my understanding, based on conversations that I've had coming up until now, the only time that the word religion is triggered is in reference to things like Christianity and uh Islam and things like that. Or not, well, being it, you know what I mean? Like, it's very limited, and then something about Buddha, and then this, that, and the third. Like, nobody's thinking, oh, when I'm talking about this specific people, I'm attacking their religion. It's like, that's the furthest. There's no connection there.
Well, what a lot of people miss about this uh, thing when people get angry and start pointing the fingers, what they forget about is people who are of Jewish background. They very cleverly teach their children, maybe not all of them, but definitely a large contingency of them in the US, UK, Europe, teach their children how, and other places like Australia, whatever, they teach their children how the money system works. They teach their children how to create wealth, how to look after money, how to make money. And that way they never go without. Now, some people could say that some of these people take it too far. Granted, fair enough. But I think there's people have to understand is that if you don't teach your children about how the stock market works, they're probably, and they're going to a public school, they're probably not going to know about it unless sometime in the future when they're older, they actually go and learn about it. So if you're teaching your children how the stock market works, then their children will end up being in private schools and they'll start learning how the money system works within private schools. And you'll also be there to teach them because you had to learn it because your parents made sure that you learned about it. That's the difference between kids growing up where I grew up and in the way I did, and most of you did, as opposed to growing up in a Jewish household in the US or something where money is more important and how the money system works is more important, and it's important that the kids understand this. So I mean that is you can't say it's a conspiracy when you
Yeah,
can be teaching your kids the same thing,
Yeah, but
but you're not.
what? Yeah, but
I agree.
how is
I
it
agree
even?
with that.
How are they then perpetrators just because by default they teach their kids about dealing with money? That doesn't automatically make them conspirators against
No, it doesn't.
everybody.
But that's what I'm saying, though. That's what I'm saying. I mean, they teach their children about the money system more than any other group of people teach their kids about the money system.
But
There's more
now,
Jewish kids learn about the money system than there is maybe Chinese kids learn about it, whatever. But more, as far as your everyday white people goes, there's certainly no other group of white people that learn. They say that no matter where they're from, Germany, the UK, wherever, they don't learn about the money system.
Okay, can I
And the
just
same for
interrupt
black
for
people.
1 second?
see,
Sorry to interrupt. I seem to have all I've done is I've updated the chipset drivers for this computer, and it seems to have solved the issue. So, okay, what I now want to do is change this members only live stream to a public live stream. Now, I can't see any feasible reason why that would make any difference, but that is literally now at this point the only, other than a chipset update, which is a fairly substantial thing to have done, there's no other changes that I've made. Do you know what I mean? So this is
Oh, you did a firmware update?
chipset.
That's a firmware. It's like the for the hardware itself, not software on your uh, computer program, right? Not
Yeah,
software, but for the hardware specifically.
it's well exactly. So the hard drive, the
It's
motherboard has
called
got
firmware.
not exactly. It's got to run the system itself. It's got something called a chipset, which is like a CPU, but it's the motherboard's CPU. So the chipset driver sort of decides how all the hardware is going to interact with each other. So when I went through all the drivers systematically while I was on the live show and just sort of checked which ones are up to date, and all of them were, until I got to Armory Crate, which is this horrendous piece of bundled software that Asus chuck in. And in there was an Intel chipset driver update. All the other ones were already grayed out, the ones that I'd done manually throughout. In other words, I've gone through them systematically. Now, if I'd known, I'd just gone to Armory Crate and pressed go, and it had done all of them for me, but I've done them one by one, except this one. So I was like, okay, there's one on the list, Intel chipset driver. I doubt this will resolve the problem. So I did it, restarted, while you were all just sat around. Came back, set up for a members-only live stream, which is what we've got now with 3 people watching, and just hit record, hit stream, and instead of pegged at 99%, the integrated graphics is now at 34%. Not only that, I've now upped the resolution, because I dropped the resolution in the live stream and dropped the recording quality and dropped everything while it was all going live. Nothing worked. So eventually I'm like, okay, I've got to ditch the recording. So I did ditch the recording. And then it was like 65%, reaching 80% when the fucking intro's playing. You're like, why is it pegging the GPU at 80% when just an intro's playing at 1080p? Nuts.
Sorry.
So anyway, chipset update, come back. Now I'm streaming it. I haven't actually checked that it's working. Let's just shut up.
It seems to go fluid.
Oh,
There
you
was some
watching?
stalling at the beginning.
Are you
Yeah, I was
watching?
watching as
On the
it was
member
starting up.
stream?
It was stalling at the beginning, but then now it's perfectly smooth.
No, I stopped it. So what I did was, when I saw that it was working and was working at 20% iGPU usage, I was like, okay, well let's up it to what I've tested with over and over and over again, which is 1440p. So I upped it to 1440p. And I'm like, well, that seems to still be working, but I had to physically stop the stream to be able to change that setting. And then I just started it again before OBS cut me off. Before YouTube cut me off, sorry. So there was a gap in between. That's why. But now it's streaming at high resolution, or higher resolution, 1440p. The bitrate's 18,000, which is very, very high, but my internet's exceptionally good. It's on fibre optic. And I haven't changed the recording quality yet, but that shouldn't make much of a difference. But it's at 35% now, which is absolutely perfect. You want it to be idling when it's doing this, and then maybe go up to about 80% if I've got a game running on it. Not 99% when I've got a bloody intro that's pre-recorded running. You're like, Jesus, Web, this is a nightmare. This computer, I know it's new tech and all, but oh God, every day I say, hey, I'm done. No, fucking not. I'll never be done. This computer's going to kill me, isn't it?
I have an idea. Don't say anything tomorrow. Just start the show.
Well, I'm going to
Good
go.
point.
Well, that's what I'm kind of want to do now. What I want to do now, that's what I was kind of interrupting for. I just ended up waffling, which is to say that I'm going to turn this members only stream into a live stream. So it will go out to the public. Just keep it broadcast worthy is really all I'm saying.
Excellent. And we will.
We had trouble saving your video. Retrying in 5 seconds. Hopefully we'll be live to an audience, like a, proper audience. Not that I'm in any way demeaning my members only audience, but yeah, this has gone public. So I'm going to check the stream, see if it's, still 34% GPU usage instead of 100%. I'll check it's working, and then if so, we'll carry on. This can be a show. I'm in a much happier mood knowing that my stuff's not about to set on fire. I did the full hour on tenterhooks though. Are you impressed? With stuff almost on fire, things going wrong around me. I managed to keep my head together enough for a full hour show on time. No, it wasn't. It was half an hour late after cancelling the show. Right, shut up and have a look and actually look if it's going out. I wouldn't normally be this unprofessional if you are watching this live, right? I wouldn't normally be checking if live streams are actually working, but needs must.
It looks good at this end, Nathan. I'm just checking it on YouTube now. Crisp, clean. I can even go up. I'm on 1080, but I've got 1440 if I want it.
You can go up to
There's
14,
no-
but that's all I was going to check. That was the last thing I was going to check, that it is actually going out in high definition. It seems criminal that a £4,000 computer I've been gifted can't do more than 1080. It can. It seems fine. It was just a chipset update. man, if I had been a new adopter of this type of computer, if I was an early adopter 12 months ago, and I'd had to deal with this shit for 12 months rather than 2, I'd be furious. I suppose that's the price you pay for being a new technology adopter. That is perfect. Again, just like it was testing. Why would a chipset driver update that worked previously suddenly make it work again? I don't know. Just so it can fail tomorrow, I don't doubt. Anyway.
Now, if you updated, it should work. It's a miracle that it even ran without it.
But in every test, I've recorded and broadcast live to members. I've done dozens and dozens and dozens of them to check these settings till I've gotten what I think are absolutely rock solid. Then you go, okay, now they don't work the day I need them to, when I've got a scheduled live stream and it's going out and I've got a recording going and I've got an after show to record. This is now in after show time. Actually, I'd normally be finished about now, wouldn't I? It's what a crime. Anyway, tomorrow, I've been told by Neil not to announce that, I'm sure I won't have any more computer worries. And then just do the show.
It was a guy on True Frequency Radio we interviewed back there, Jimmy Jean. And he taught us this. He said, never tempt the universe. So when somebody asks you, how are you? Just say, I couldn't be any better. Then the universe can only make it better. You say, oh, I'm not bad. You can tempt the universe. So the best thing is it done? You say, no, I'm sure there'll be a lot more fiddling that's necessary. Don't tempt the universe.
What you're saying is, as I know for a fact that the last computer I tinkered with till the day it broke, you're saying, admit defeat. And
no.
What?
No,
it couldn't be any better. This computer couldn't be any better.
Don't say it's fixed. Don't say it's fixed now, because that'll tempt the universe and go, it's not. Yeah? Just say, yeah, I'm sure there'll be a lot more tinkering to do. And then the universe might surprise you.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to do some more tinkering with this computer.
There you go. I agree.
I hate you,
That is
computer.
so
Die in hell.
suspicious.
No, I'm really grateful. I've thanked Paul for buying it me about 5,000 times.
And next time, just make sure you update all the hardware first. And
I
don't
did.
skip one.
Oh,
No, you didn't.
skip one.
You skipped it.
Oh, I didn't see that there was a chipset driver needing to be updated. How am I supposed to know that stuff? I've updated millions of drivers since I've got this new computer. Not millions, that's a total exaggeration. A lot.
Probably like 10. But there's always more, and sometimes it doesn't even, like, I have issues where certain drives I can't install, and then I have to, like, manually pick it, some special version for it, right? So, yeah, but updates for your actual hardware is critical. It's much more important than even software.
Oh, thank you, Arwin. I'm so glad you're here.
Not specifically to you, but to listeners.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, Nathan.
Say again?
Tomorrow, and from this very moment on, say nothing about it. Just cross the bridge when you come to it. Just do your show. Because like, it's all great now. There's nothing can go wrong. Like, you're only looking for something to go wrong. It's Murphy's Law.
Well, the only proper way to actually test it is to have an anti-flat earther on the show.
Because then it'll definitely go wrong. Just at the point that I need to be taking apart his point.
If it would, yes.
Right, that's definitely tempting fate. But again, as has been the case many times previously during testing, this is running perfectly, just to a much more limited audience that aren't at my scheduled time. But anyway, I'm sure there will be a bit more tinkering with this computer. You happy, Adam? Gone. Everyone's deserted.
Well, I'm glad that it fixed it, at least. Very happy for you and us.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I really don't. I really, really, really hoped that after last week that this would be the end of it.
It's Halloween weekend, so Monday, you could say Monday is still kind of part of the weekend. So just tomorrow's the real start of the week.
Yeah,
You ain't gonna need another week of therapy, are you?
I am going to need another week of therapy with this computer. It's been about 6 weeks. It's been maybe even 2 months since I got it, And between taking it into the computer guy to get the thing to actually be attached to the cooler and cool itself, to it overheating and having to control the thermal temperatures and the output and the power usage of every single component in it one by one, including the RAM, which is typically not something you'd need to worry about in terms of temperatures. You just stick it in and it works. Well, with this, it's very, very, very fussy. When I described it in a post that I made, and I was like, yeah, another post, I'm finished. And I described it as being like a race car. Now, if you buy a crate engine, right, it might say on the box up to 4,000 horsepower. Yeah? Well, that may be true, but if you just chuck that crate motor in a car and then go and dyno it, you might get 400 if you're lucky. Right, if you just chuck it in and turn the key. Yeah? Because it requires effort to make it do those sorts of things. Now, it's the same, and I knew it with high-end computers. Now, in the past, I've told you stories of joy going back to my parents' computer shop and playing the latest and greatest games. Some of them that literally had hardware in the box with the game to make it work in your computer. So hardware compatibility is something that I've been familiar with for a very, very long time, since I can remember, which amused me because I watched Angry Video Game Nerd and he was talking about Doom, and he plays it on his Atari or something, and he turns over the box and he's like, hardware compatibility, and he's like, what the hell does that mean? And it made me chuckle, thinking that's the first thing I would do. You get back to the shop, my folks' shop in Birmingham, when they were selling networking into schools and computers and PCs and all the rest of it. The new game would come in, you'd take it over, and the first thing you'd look at is what the hardware specifications were, what you needed to run it, and then you'd ask whoever was in the shop, which computer's got this spec, and if it hasn't, if it's got a piece of equipment in the box, can I put it in that machine over there, please, so I can play this game? And then you'd end up taking the top of a computer, putting a piece of hardware in, putting it back together, and then seeing if you could get the damn game to run, which would be a faff. Now, I give you all of that build-up to say that there came a point in me, my brother, and my sister's life where my parents were coming to retirement age and they wanted to sell a very successful business, worth, it was turning over in millions. It was a successful business. And all of us turned it down. One by one, we all said, no, don't want it. No, thanks. No, sell it. Get rid of it. We don't want it. So in the end, they just sold it. And they were offering it to us to just have a successful computer business, doing, like I say, networking, selling to schools and all just computer things, right? And my dad...
Could have been a millionaire by now.
Possibly, but what we had all experienced growing up as children was what computers were, what they involved, and how much of a headache they caused, right? And I remember late on before my folks retired, my mum I asked her, I was like, do you like computers? Because I was a teenager, maybe a bit earlier, and I was into the video games, and that's all that I knew about the computers. And I was like, do you like them, Mum? She's like, I could kick them all in the air. That's what she said. I'll never forget it. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She was like, I don't care for any of them. No, I don't like them. Right? It's because of this sort of crap. Right? When you're selling stuff that's on the cutting edge, that means something. Now, we talk about it when we talk about the slow grind of finding stuff that's in existence already. If you come to look at celestial navigation, it's already in existence, isn't it? It's already being utilized. And lo and behold, it requires a flat earth. Now, over time, we come across things like this because of the due diligence of people like 10th Man, not because of me. And we explore them. But if you're on the outside looking in, that's a very slow process. And I give it an analogy of sharpening a blade, right? Now, that is the same with these stupid computer things, right? If you take one look at it, and there's a guy I've been watching at the moment on a channel called Frame Chasers, and he says, nothing ever changes. New hardware comes out, and it's, 5 times more speed and 10 times more better, right? But it isn't. It's the same as the old stuff, right? It's hard to explain. Stuff doesn't progress in a way that people imagine it does when you see 10x the speed and etc, etc, etc. Now, I know that instinctually, and in spite of watching loads of videos about, when you upgrade your computer, you feel the smoothness. I was like, I know this isn't true. And in truth, I had got low expectations for this new computer. In fact, I dreaded getting it, right? I I remember saying to my wife, "Oh, it's such an I don't want to change the computer. I want this one to live forever because it currently works." And the computer guy I did service with said the same thing. He says, "Yeah, it's pretty snappy, isn't it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't want to get rid of it. I didn't want to get rid of it. I just wanted you to make it work and live forever." Which is unreasonable because it's old and tatty and burnt out, and I've overclocked it, and it's frazzled, right? It's on its last legs. Needs sticking on eBay, which is precisely where it is. And anyway, the new introduction to a new computer is the same as the old one. There will be the same headaches in terms of tuning it. There will be the same headaches in terms of transferring your old data onto the new computer and setting up all the drivers and learning the new structure of the new system. All of that headache to get essentially the exact same thing that you had before, because that's what I will have. Now, don't get me wrong, I appreciate that there's more things that it can do, and it is absolutely silent under circumstances where it wasn't silent in the old computer. But man, it's a lot of work to get there. And today is just your typical example of that, where you go, the light at the end of the tunnel. I've had it stabilized, I've had the last couple of shows running, I've done test streams, I've had them recording and streaming at the same time. They've been done in high definition. I've been in and out of the live stream on my iPad, checking the quality, been showing it to my wife. It's all fantastic. You know what? I'm going to not touch a thing, just let it run all weekend. I'll let my wife fuck with it. I'll let my kids play with it. They can do what they like. I'll just leave it, and hopefully it'll break during the weekend so I can address it. And no, all stable. You get to the show, get to 2 o'clock, everything's set up smoothly, the computer, the hardware's all working perfectly, and OBS shits the bed. Why? Well, because the GPU in the processing chip is pegged at 100%. Why? Well, who knows? It wasn't like that in the last 20 tests you did. So you're like, oh, what am I going to do? I'm streaming live now. It's like that aeroplane analogy, right? The people who do air crash investigations, they always say there's a pilot mentality that is, once you're in the air, everything will be okay. And it's kind of like that with live streaming. Once I can get live, everything will be okay. I can sort all the things that kind of don't work until the live stream itself isn't working. In other words, there isn't, like now, a nice, steady stream where people can hear what we're saying and discussing. When that isn't the case, that's the equivalent of going off the end of the runway without him taking off, right? That's smashing into residential buildings with the aeroplane while you're pushing the throttles even more to get it to go faster to lift off, right? That's what that is. That's powering towards death. So that was the feeling that I had earlier. You know, you're like, oh my God, the show's not going to continue like this. It can't continue like this.
You want my take on it?
Go on.
No.
Since Lucifer's the prince of the power of the air, and that's where all this is going through air, right? We're on the right track, and he's trying to shut us down.
What the hell does that have anything to do with the intervention that Nathan needs?
Intervention? What do you mean intervention? You're saying I'm going a bit loopy?
You need intervention, man. Bad.
I don't. I just
He
need...
wants the show to run smooth.
Just need stable RAM at 5200. I need an octa-core speed of about 4.8 gigahertz and a single to dual core speed of about 5.2. I need the hard drives to shut the hell up when I'm doing the show. I need the fans to stay off as much as humanly possible. And I need it to just stream in slightly higher quality than I had from the old PC, i.e. 1440p instead of 1080p. That's all I'm asking. It's not much. Please, Jesus. I'll believe in you more.
Believe in you more.
More
That's
than
baller
almost not at all, I'll be honest.
Oh, you just cooked your goose now.
That's
You
not a
think-
good. That's not a good way of going about.
Yeah, well, he still needs an intervention. I like the enthusiasm, but you need intervention, son.
Nah, I'm all right. I've had plenty of rest over the weekend. If I'd have done ball busters, this would have tipped me over the edge. I'm not even joking. But I'm smiling about it because with a clear head, having had rest over the weekend, I can, within an hour, a couple of hours, get to the bottom of the problem and fix it. Driver update, new software, change of generation, 13th gens come out. They want the new chips to work on the old boards. That's why there's a chipset update. That's the only reason this has gone wrong. But you do kind of go, oh, what's the next bloody driver update that will make this show shit the bed. You know what I mean?
So what you're trying to tell us is all these problems boiled down to a chipset update.
No, because prior to
No.
that update, I had the show streaming and recording beautifully to members every single time I tested it. It worked. The problem I had last week wasn't software; it was hardware. Things overheating, things crashing because they're overheating, namely the RAM. That's all been resolved. I've got steady voltages. The hardware's now functioning well. The hardware is nice, but not if there's a software confliction that's making the GPU, which is technically hardware, pegged to 100%, which it isn't now. It's 35% streaming at high resolution. So I'm reasonably confident that tomorrow, right? Why wouldn't I be? It'll be perfect, right? Will it, heck?
Oh boy. I'm tired just listening to you.
Well, there we go. I've kept us live so we could talk about interesting flat Earth stuff. Now I'm in a bit of a better mood with the stream actually functioning as it
No.
should and a very low number of audience members. And Neil just
Well,
left. That says it all.
What says it all? I didn't get that last part because Brian.
Neil left. It's
dragged him
okay.
up.
Go ahead, Brian.
No. I leave you say it first, Nate. Whatever you were saying, I could have.
I think I was saying that says it all. Neil left. You were saying, it's making me tired just listening to you. And then Neil dropped. I was like, oh, okay.
Well, what I was going to say is during Ruhif's debate with John, Ruhif mathematically changed the physical size of his globe. That's what he did to try and make celestial navigation work on a globe. He had to change the physical size of it to try and flatten it out. Now, not that they do that in celestial navigation, but Ruhif did it. So Adam is stating that 7/6R is not that. Yes, that's exactly what Ruhif did. And I disagree with Adam, that Adam is stating that 7/6R involves possibly ray tracing and the bending of rays of light and etc. from a calculation point of view. But I would state that no, there is no such thing as light refraction within the heliocentric model, that 7/6R and anything other than that, anything greater than 7/6R, is all based around a mathematical physical change in the size of the globe. So there's no way that an observer and what the observer is viewing, there's no way with those two, the distance between the observer and what they're viewing, there's no way that could stay constant under a 7/6R scenario or anything greater than 7/6R. There's no way that location has to move further away from the observer. It would be a geometric impossibility for that not to happen from that point of view.
When you're using 7/6R, or when it was used in the past, Brian, we would kind of go along with their notion that it's bending the light at the rate that's dictated by the curvature that they explained, with little strips of light that are ever having the Snell's law effect applied, creating a gradual curve at the rate of 7/6R. Now, 2022, we're pointing out that where's anything to do with light in 7/6R? What is 7/6R? Well, it's 7/6 of the radius. So what it is a derivation of the radius then. So it's changing the radius. That's all it is. There's nothing to do with refraction in there. Now, again, until now we'd been pointing that out. But now we've taken it one step further in saying, what's it actually do then? Well, it just changes the size of the ball that they're presupposing. That's all it does.
Personally, I never even messed with 7/6R. I always went to the refraction part. I kind of knew that it didn't have anything to do with it. It's just by definition, 7/6R in borders, right? So what is 7/6R? Well, they're changing the radius. Isn't it pretty self-explanatory? What's Adam's argument?
What was the last show number? Was it 1758?
I think so, Nathan. Yes.
Thank you. Making a
Well,
thumbnail.
thanks. That had a lot to do with my query.
Well, you know, I'm on top of
Adam
it. My
is-
hardware works. I can be making thumbnails, multitasking, listening. It's freaking
Let's
ace.
move on. It works now. Let's talk about the Earth.
Yeah,
thing.
stop talking about it. Move on. You're always
Shut
right.
up. It's his show. He can do what he wants.
No, we
Making a
can't.
thumbnail. What's the problem? Go ahead, whoever
Well,
it was
we
that I've
can
now forgotten
romp us
about
in.
because QE's distracted me.
So let's get, what's Adam's argument?
Adam's argument.
Well,
He wasn't even talking, was he?
Someone. He was
Well,
earlier.
Brian, hold on a second. Brian said that Adam had a disagreement with the 7/6R when isn't it self-evident?
It's
Adam
not my
disagrees.
understanding of
Sorry.
how they calculate it.
How they
No.
calculate what? It's the 7/6R is not a calculation.
No, it's
It's a ratio.
it's a ratio. So, Brian, could you? Well, it doesn't matter. I don't need the diagram. If you follow logic, you know the light's traveling in a straight line. So if you was to take it to that ball, then you would draw a tangent from the point you're viewing from, and that would just be a straight line. From the tangent point, it'd go way over the observer's head. If you were to take the assumption that the light travels the exact rate of the curvature, that's 6/6R, the rate at which it's bending. What they're saying is that it's not perfect. It doesn't match the curvature, the rate of curvature of the light rays. What it does do, though, is curve at a rate of a slightly larger radius. So you can take that path and then you put that 7/6 path onto your start point, and that's where you get your obstruction from. That's how I've always understood the maths, that they calculate that. That's
The
not
maths?
right. Yeah, the way in which they work out the obstruction then.
Yeah, but you're going too far into it. We're just talking about 7/6. That's why I said I put borders around it. See,
Yeah.
I put brick walls around it. 7/6 doesn't have anything to do. You started talking about light. Well,
Yeah.
light's not curving anyway. So I don't even know why. You could have brought in Fruit Loop.
That's irrelevant whether light is doing that or not. I'm on about what they're claiming and how they manipulate the numbers to pad it out so it looks flatter.
Well, Adam,
I'm not
what they
saying
do.
obviously I'm not
Sorry.
saying in reality light's bending at that rate. I'm saying this is what they do in terms of how they apply it. What they don't
How they
do,
apply
from my
how they apply
understanding,
what?
what they
Oh.
don't do is just put it onto a bigger ball.
I'm lost.
So
That
the
is what they do. Adam.
7/6 application isn't to the surface, as Brian's saying. In my understanding, it was never to the surface. The 7/6 application is to do with the rate of curvature of the light rays and how that will then interact with the still maintained 6/6R ball and its geometry.
Maybe this is above my head. I don't think so. I'm lost as to how light enters this.
That's how that's always been explained to me by them, and by Rue here. So I don't.
Oh, there's your problem.
No, it's not
Yeah.
my problem. Other than
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out. I know they're wrong. I'm not saying they're wrong. I can easily say that. I'm trying to figure out why Brian's saying that, because that's not been my understanding of their claim previously in terms of when they show the maths and explain it.
Yeah, but
Show
I'm
the
trying to tell you.
maths.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm not getting it. Are you getting? Hold on a second. Are you understanding my position?
Now I don't know what you're.
Okay, my position is that's why here, just drop everything you thought about before. It's just 7/6R. It's got big brick walls around it. There's nothing else coming in. No Fruit Loops, no spitballs, no pen caps, nothing. 7/6R is just a ratio of the Earth. I don't know about the surface. It's from the center. It's a radius ratio, correct?
No, it's a rate of curve, right, of the light, supposed light. It's the
Where
rate,
the fuck is light coming in?
the light is coming in because the rate at which it's curving
Light
is
doesn't
based.
curve.
I know it doesn't, but the rate, but they're claiming that the rate at which the light is curving is based on an R value of 7/6 of the R value of the Earth. That's the rate at which the light is actually curving. It's not curving to match the surface. It's curving slightly less than the surface to give an approximate R value of 7/6R, which
Define
means
rate.
it doesn't match, but it does straighten out the image for them, meaning there's less obstruction to excuse.
That's crazy. Define rate.
No, it's crazy.
Define rate.
So the way in which the rate is the rate of curve is as Brian showed. Okay, so as he went and took it out and did the bigger R value, if you take that R value and use that R value, not on a bigger radius, and then bring that arc that you create back down to the viewer, that's what you see. That's what they do. They bring that down, and that's then the obstruction.
I don't care about that. I asked you to define rate. You're 7/6 is not a
not a rate.
rate.
Okay, sorry. Well, it's changing. It's bending at that rate. So the way in which you
can't say rate. That's not a fucking rate.
Okay, excuse the grammar. The way in which you calculate the arc is to take another circle like what Brian did, and that with the R value of 7/6, you take that arc and then you apply that to the geometry to calculate the new obstruction caused by the still unchanged structure. And what Brian's saying is no, what they're doing is putting it on to a larger ball of 7/6R and then reducing the actual number of angles that you traverse through to keep the distance the same, the bigger R. And that's what
that explains it. I totally understand it now.
Oh, I do. I'm just saying that's the difference between the two and what Brian's brought to the table. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying that's not been my understanding of what they've claimed in the past. So
Well, I
I'd
have a
like to
question
see
about
both sets of workings. I'd like to see Brian's calculations of how he gets it to match their things, and then we can have a good look at it and see what they're doing. Because there's obviously
you're missing the point, Adam. Nothing is going to match their thing because their thing is made up. It doesn't exist. What they're doing is they're changing the size of the surface of their globe to flatten it out for the observer, but they're not changing the distance between the observer and the location. So every time they show you an observation, Black Swan is a great example. Every time they show you the Black Swan, they say, "Oh, it's just really, really big refraction, right? Whatever, infinite/6 refraction, right? Infinite/6, sorry, or I shouldn't use the word refraction. If infinite/6 and that's why the horizon is so far away from the observer. But they didn't. If that is the case and the horizon is back there, then the oil rigs must be past the horizon. They have to be. It's a geometric fact. What they're doing is they're working purely on the horizon, moving, and they're trying to keep the objects they're looking at or the location they're looking at the same distance from the observer. There is no light refraction. There's no Snell's law. There's none of that going on. They're double dipping and trying to hijack actual refraction and mix it in with just basically making a bigger ball. Because the proof of this is when Ruhif was debating John, he made his globe physically bigger to flatten it out for his presentation on celestial navigation.
Right, so Ruth is a member, isn't he? I think he's joined as a member. So maybe he'll be able to answer this first. How do they calculate this? How do they take into account, and what's the maths they do to take into account their supposed terrestrial refraction? So I'm not disputing it's all nonsense, like with you. I'm asking how they derive the numbers. And
But
you're
do you
saying
expect that?
now the way they do it is like that, and I'm open to that. I'd like to see exampled. But if Rufy's listening, which I'm sure he is, drop us a line, dude, so you can just tell us how you guys calculate it, because I'm kind of defending your position here. I'm back to being a Gnostic defender.
I don't know what you are.
I'm not, no,
me neither.
I'm not defending their position, Brian. I'm just trying to make sure my understanding of what they were claiming previously was correct. That's all.
What they were claiming, we know you're not on board with them. What they did, what Rufy did, was just mindlessly parrot what people have told him. What do you mean how they calculate? How they calculate what?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Follow-
if you go into Metabunk Earth Curve Calculator, you'll see the addition that they put in is refracted horizon.
Ah! Okay, have
yeah,
them
they
define
did update
refraction.
it.
Yeah, who cares about the updates? I haven't been there in 4 years. Who cares about the updates? Have them define refraction.
Yeah, well, that's if I was arguing with them, that's all I'd have to do. I'm not trying to argue with them. I'm trying to understand within their bullshittery what that actually means. What understand the nuance of their claim, like where they're pulling their numbers from. Yeah, I know that the numbers are incorrect. I know what refraction is, and I know they're not using it in its correct term. The term refracted is their magical bending, as described.
Right.
Yeah, man, that's all I'm saying. It's just that's not how I've understood it.
It's not how they understand it either, because Rufy or any other knuckle dragger, all they're doing is mindlessly parroting. Where'd they get it from?
Yeah, and what Brian
And
showed today, I've not seen before. You see, so I've got to understand what he's saying and see. I understand the principle of what he's saying. I want to see how that's calculated after the fact to match up with these figures.
Hold on a second. How what's calculated and matching up to what figures?
Right. So what the methodology that Brian was describing this afternoon, how if we were to follow that methodology, does it match up to those? I know it's geeky, but that's kind of what I do.
I know.
You know?
You're not being
I know you're going, ugh, disgusting. Stop it. No need for it. So I've even got a sheep. Now.
Yeah, but what Kiwi is asking you, what matches up to what figures? What is it that's supposed to match up to what?
Right.
I mean, these things are things that they're making up. That's my point.
No, but
They're not sticking to what 7 over 6 are.
You've just said they're making it up like this.
No, I pointed out exactly what they're doing.
Right, so
That's
they're
the
making it up like this. So if you're saying that's exactly what they're doing, I want to see the maths of that is all I'm saying. Not just, oh, that's plausible. Let's match the numbers up. Is that what they're doing in this?
Yes.
Right,
They're
so if you can tell...
It's Metabunk. You just proved it to yourself a second ago when you said the refracted horizon on Metabunk.
I won't prove it until I see the formulas of how this is working. That's what I'm asking for. I'm not querying you. I'm not attacking you. I'm just saying, show me the maths of how it's calculated. Because if this is part of it, that's interesting. It's not how I viewed it, but I need to see that because what you've done there, taking it out, will do that, won't it? Is that the thing that matches to give this new refracted horizon? I want to explore all that. So if we can get some tables from what you've done, I think that's cool. But I can't confirm it because I've not checked it. And I always check stuff.
Okay, let me ask you this. Does Metabunk refer to the horizon or does Metabunk refer to the locations or objects you're looking at?
Both.
Well, when I go to Metabunk, they'll give me a geometric or a refracted horizon. That's what they'll give me, right? So if the horizon is changing its position, then anything in relation to it must change its distance from the observer. If the horizon is changing its position in relation to the observer, that means the reason it's doing that is because they're mathematically increasing the physical size of the sphere.
That's
So
your claim.
objects
And
like,
that's what I'm
hang on,
asking you to
one
prove.
second, one second,
Yeah, but you're
one
not.
second. Leave me finish.
No, just show me
So-
the numbers of how you calculate to make that claim. I understand the claim, Brian. I've just gone through it, and I'm just trying to match it up. I'm just saying, can you send me the stuff that demonstrates that claim so
What
that we
claim?
can match these numbers up? Because that's cool. Because what Metabunk doesn't do, yeah, is show you his workings and the programming within it. You put the input in, and you just get these figures: the refracted rise and refracted drop. So if that's how they're doing it, we should be able to match those up, and that's really useful. Because I know, I said, when I did the actual curvature drop stuff, not the refracted stuff, I'm within the 3 decimal points of them in terms of accuracy in the formula that I derived, just for the standard drop stuff. But then they've built this in. So if this is how they're then readjusting stuff, this is cool because we figure it out.
Yeah, but you're missing something.
I'm
You're
not
asking
missing
me
out,
for.
mate.
You're asking me, right? You're asking me for the calculation when I'm giving it to you. It's 7/6 or terrestrial refraction.
That's not a formula,
Terrestrial.
Brian. It's just
It's a ratio, Adam.
we just declared it. It's not a ratio. I just
you-
have to apologise for the term ratio.
Okay, can I just interrupt
you're
for 1
looking
second?
for-
Sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
Brian. Okay, so because of the technical issues earlier, one of the things I did in the live show that went out first that ended up getting cancelled was updating the Gilded link because it was still on the old Discord link. Now, I've made that same mistake at the beginning of this stream, just trying to cobble it together to get it working, and it is. And because I'm on top of it, I've managed to actually get the Gilded stream link into this video. So I'm going to do a quick announcement in that regard because this video started abruptly and then went live when it was members only and things like that. If you're watching this live, and there are a few people watching, although this isn't a scheduled normal time, there is now the Gilded link. So if you want to refresh the stream that you're watching and then go to the bottom of the info box, you'll find that there's an actual link that does take you to the Gilded server so you can actually join and express your views on the nature of Earth or challenge anything that's being said currently by any of the panel members. So there's a Gilded link. It's updated. You just have to refresh because it wasn't there when you first joined the stream. It is now. So if you did want to join in this conversation, the Gilded link is open, and there are people in there. There's Dank in there, and there's me in there at the moment, not many others, because as I say, this isn't a normally scheduled time. But feel free to join if you did want to challenge anything that's being discussed or express your views on the nature of Earth. Thank you, Brian and Adam, for your indulgence.
Nice to see you making progress.
Shut up, Neil. Adam,
Yeah, shut up, Neil. Things are getting
no
back
one
to
attacked-
normal.
No one attacked Adam over a ratio. You weren't attacked with that. We were just telling you it was a ratio.
I was correct.
I tried to get. Hold on. I had a problem with when you said rate. Follow?
Well, the rate is what I was meaning by that. The rate at which it's curving in relation to the distance it's traveling. That's yeah. 'cause
Well,
it's-
7/6. 7/6 is not a rate.
if you apply it to the circle, then you can
All right.
describe the rate at which the amount of drop will occur
Okay,
over
what-
distance.
All right, give me. Oh, the amount of. See, you're adding stuff to it. What
I
I'm
know,
saying.
but
is
I know, but I didn't know he was going to be pedantic on the definition there, so I needed clarity. So yeah, in the fullness, I didn't fully explain what I was meaning.
All right, fair enough. Boy, this is fucking tedious.
Well, it is because I like to say I want to have a little look at it. I'm not making any claims either way. I'm not saying right or wrong.
know that.
actually was intrigued with what Brian was saying, and like I said, it lends to if that's how they're working it out. Because Brian's right. He talks about everything else having to relatively move. He would, but at a different rate. That's the other. This is the point. Yeah. If something's at 130 miles and somewhere 150, they don't both move by a proportionate amount because it's curving on a circle, which is proportionate to its R value. Did you see?
Yeah, but
So there's all those-
You forgot the other half of that rate, by the way.
But this is why their claim is so extraordinary anyway. When they just strap
Claim is
7/6.
non sequitur.
for it to render as a flat image, is an impossibility, because everything would have to be refracting at different terrestrial refraction rates if that was a thing that existed to render the image flat. And I think that's Brian's other point in terms of the background stuff.
You keep on saying rate.
I'm
That's
going to
not
keep
a
doing it.
rate.
I'm going to keep doing it. What word do you want? What word do you want? Come on. What do you want?
Something other than rate, because 7/6 is not a fucking rate.
Amount. Amount.
Let me ask you this, Adam. Right? Is 7/6R? It can be either one of two things. It can't be two things at once. It can either be light bending through a density of a medium at a rate from your eye to a location that should be within their model behind the curve, allowing you to see it in the horizontal. Or it's 7/6, or it's a mathematical physical change in the size of their sphere Earth, straightening out the surface. It's either applying to light and temperature and mediums, or it's applying to the actual globe Earth itself. It can't apply to two at once.
You said rate, Brian.
Did I mention rate with 7/6R?
You did just say amount. Just say amount,
wait,
Brian. Otherwise,
I said wait. I said wait. I didn't. But I said wait when it came to light going through a medium. I wasn't talking about 7/6R.
Okay. Nobody is to stone anybody, even if they do say rate.
All citizens.
I got a question about this 7/6.
They don't say rate.
Hold on, Arwin. Go ahead, John.
Is it happening under surface level? Is both R and 7/6R below surface level?
I don't know what 7/6R is meant to see. 7/6R is supposed to be showing you reality. That's the whole point of it. That's why they go to more than 7/6R. They bring it to infinite over 6R when they need to, with situations like the black swan.
Yeah, but there are no flat spots on a sphere, right?
Yes.
So all their little diagrams happen below surface level.
That's not how they claim it. That's the claim of 7/6R and greater than 7/6R is claimed to be what we're looking at.
But in the math, they have to put surface level in as a straight line.
Well, in the math, it's still. Well, that's my point. In the math, it still stays as a sphere.
No, you
but they just
can't
make it bigger.
You can't use that interjection refracted on at this point, because we're too far down the rabbit hole of permissions with regards to curvature and light and stuff to use that. I think that's unfair. Because we can't.
I just wander into a conversation like I ain't got nothing what's going on. Yeah.
No, do you know? I know what you're saying. You can use that to just abruptly stop the conversation. It wins the argument. But we're not arguing really. We're trying to figure out what their claim is, the nature of the calculation that they use to support why they're not seeing the obstruction that is their ball. And what Brian's saying is,
Did you say that we're trying to figure out why they're not seeing the obstruction that they claim?
Yeah.
John,
that's the point of it, isn't it? Because they should have a big hump in the way, shouldn't they? But they're not. And so this is all apologetics as to why that hump's not as big as it should be.
I just want some more correction. It's not that should is a perfectly acceptable word, but a sphere Earth would offer a geometric limitation, but that is the basis of their claim in the first instance, isn't it? It's not like we're saying, oh well, they should have a hill in the way. It's like, what, the hill in the way that the math says will be in the way? Why are we having to make apologetics for their actual claim that there's a hill in the way? That's Earth curve. It just isn't. But then when we point out that it isn't, they give us this refraction excuse, get into 7/6R, destroy their own geometry, and then we're into having to say, well, you should have a hill in the way. It's like, yeah, it's there in the maths. It's marked with an X, labelled horizon. It's called Earth curve. It just isn't in the way. Black Swan.
But in all fairness, the flat Earth is getting in the way of what they would claim as obstruction.
Flat Earth is an obstruction to what they're claiming.
Yes, that's the problem.
Yeah, which is why they have to make their globe physically bigger from a mathematical point of view to try and claim that it's straightening out for you. And then what they do is they switch that, they do a hijack of refraction and try and claim that this is due to light refraction, when what it is that they have to claim that the physical Earth is changing in physical size in front of your eyes. That's what they have to claim. That's my point.
Well,
Which would put the...
We already know. We already know your position, Brian. You don't have to repeat it. What Adam's saying. No, you don't. What Adam's saying is he's trying to figure out, and I would like to find out this also. Where did 7/6 come from? Is that what you're trying to find out, Adam? Yes.
How are they using it? I don't think I'd be.
No. Not how they're using it. Where did it come from in the first place? Not as a genetic fallacy. How did they calculate a 7/6R? Did they just dream it up?
You'd need half of that.
Yeah, you would.
Doesn't it have to match the stars?
This is the kind of live show I wanted to have at the scheduled time. Alas, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live in 1440p high definition, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering streams. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next high-fidelity Flat Earth debate.
What a lovely day!
What? What the fucking rate?
Yeah, no. The surface isn't a flat surface. We've already permitted them to have a spherical surface based on our.
You better not say rate.
No, I don't know.
But if you've already like skipped past that it's flat and you're giving them that it's curved, wouldn't it just be like kind of the end of the?
No, because we weren't discussing with the baller. Me and Brian were trying to figure out. Brian's made a claim in terms of what he thinks the way in which they're doing it. And the more pertinent point you're saying is, Brian, there is if they're taking this refracted horizon by doing that, as opposed to repositioning it, then the bit you made in terms of you can't have your cake and eat it, can only apply that 7/6R in one place is totally spot on. And that's why it's important to exactly quantify what they're doing. So if your bits match that, then that's going to be different to refracting a 6/6 geometric horizon. I think that's how I want to look at it.
Well, see, the thing about this is that think about who you referenced earlier, which was Ruhif, right? Ruhif is going to say anything and make up any nonsense because that's what Ruhif does. The same person, that being Ruhif, when he was debating John, from a mathematical point of view, physically changed the size of his globe to try and flatten it out in his presentation. So that's a contradiction.
To be fair, my understanding really comes from the old Flat Earth debate show, and it's the old Rumpy Pumpy. Because we're still waiting, remember, for his ray tracing to prove stuff, aren't we? Yeah, it must be 4 or 5 years now. We've been waiting for him to come back with his ray tracing of the Isle of Man. But that was always my understanding, that geometry was fixed, and he had to get his ray tracing over his 6/6 hump, just his 1R. I didn't know he was applying a 7/6 because it was always there. It was his physical. That's why he's kicked out, because he's a liar. He changed it from that.
Yeah, but whatever Rumpus comes up with as far as ray tracing, right, which is basically something done within software, right, for video games and stuff, whatever Rumpus comes up with there, that has no relationship to 7/6R. That's what Rumpus is coming up with, and he was coming up with that, and they were making claims about that when they were also claiming that the horizon was a geometric location that adheres to a globe with a radius of 3,959 miles. See what I'm saying? It's like they're going to the references we have for them, like that's like I almost went straight to the root of it. 7/6 of a radius. There's no radius in light.
It's refracted because of its position with respect to the horizon. Rumpus's claim. So that's
correct.
It's right. So with that horizon in his original claim, that's a 6/6 horizon, and it's that change with respect to that as to whether it's refracted or not.
Yeah, but what does refracted mean then? It means nothing.
The thing you're looking at, bar the hump, because remember the hump's never refracted; it was always there. So, but it's refracted with respect to its change to the horizon, which is the 6/6. That's what I'm saying. Everything else moves except the foreground.
Right.
Okay, but let me throw this at you. Sorry, John, you go ahead. I'll go after you.
Well, I was just going to say, it's just begging the question and a red herring after that, because then you're talking about an object with respect to the horizon.
Yeah, but that's what they did. That's what they do in their maths. That's what everything was in terms of that. It's how it rendered with respect to the horizon, which was solely geometry based.
And then they go and disrespect the horizon with a 7/6. What a shame.
No, but then the light's curving up over that 6/6, yeah, at 7/6. That's its arc. The arc it forms is an equivalent arc if you just took that section off a radius value of 7/6, and then you just put that on the 6/6. So it's how it makes it over the hump. You see, that's what he was measuring. How much light gets over the hump to still be seen.
But if light was refracting at a, like what they're claiming, a curved rate or whatever of a larger radius, then how would it ever re-intersect with the Earth? That doesn't make sense either.
That's correct. But
let me throw something at you. From a 1 foot observer height within Metabunk, the geometric horizon is 1.23 miles away. With 7/6R added to that calculation, the horizon becomes from a 1 foot observation height is 1.32 miles away. So that means the horizon has moved from its location to a further location away from the observer. So hypothetically, if I'm on a globe and I'm looking at something I'm at 1 foot observer height and I'm looking at a hill behind or something behind the horizon, right? Now, when 7/6R is added, that horizon moves from 1.23 miles to 1.32 miles. But how can the hill stay in the same position? That has to also move with the horizon that's moving. It has to also make a distance from the observer. You can't just have your cake and eat it and just move the horizon and keep everything else where you need it to be to make your little globe claims.
What hill are you talking about?
If you take let's just take an oil rig, right? Let's hypothetically put ourselves on a globe. We're at 1 foot observer height. The horizon is 1.23 miles away. There is an oil rig behind the horizon, right? 7.046R is added, right? That moves the horizon from 1.23 miles to 1.32 miles. So it's changed the position of the horizon. So how can the horizon change, which would be a physical change in the size of the sphere, and the oil rig stay in the same position? The oil rig has to move back.
I didn't ask that. I didn't ask you that. I said, where's the fucking hill?
Well, hill, it doesn't matter. Hill, oil rig, I'm just using an object.
But
it's behind the horizon. It's behind the horizon.
You said hill before. That's my problem. That was the issue. That didn't tell me where the hill was. Is the hill before the horizon or after the horizon? Or is it the horizon?
I'm sorry. I meant the object to be behind. No, the object to be behind the horizon. So the horizon is in the foreground of the object, blocking some of the object.
That's not what he's asking
Right.
about.
That's not what I'm asking you.
Let me just clarify. The horizon is the apex of the hill.
That's what I meant. Yeah, thank you. So that's
not what I'm saying.
Not what you said.
No. If it's behind the horizon, then it's further distance than the apex of the hill. If it's in front of the horizon, then it's a shorter distance than the apex of the hill.
Yeah.
Based on your observer height.
Yeah, this is back to the bulge thing. I'm not getting on to your point. I understand your point, Brian. You're saying they're making the distance getting larger. Yes, of course, if it's 7/6R. I don't even know why we're even fucking talking about this.
No,
bring one of those crayon munchers in here, and I want to see where they got 7/6R to implicate it in anything.
This is the crux of it. What Brian's saying. Do they move it to a bigger ball where where the apex of the hill?
Yes.
Oh, shut up! Let me finish. Where the
he
apex
just fucking told you that. He just told you that with the horizon.
So, my point being, this is the difference of what we're saying. So in Brian's world, then we're dealing with what? Because this is where Brian trips them up. They still need to bend that light. They can't have straight rays, but they've already applied a 7/6 to the horizon, right? Whereas what I'm saying is they keep it as a 6/6 and claim they can see further over the apex because the light's lifting up a little bit so you can see over the hill. That's the difference in the calculations. That's the differentiation I'm trying to make, is how do they do that?
Yeah, but you just changed it to 6/6. So what you're saying is, what does the 7/6 apply to? Of course, it's 7/6R. Of course, in that ratio, it's the radius. But what you're saying is, no, that's applying to fairy tale light.
Yes. But what Brian's saying is, look at the calculations. What they're doing is flattening out a ball. And I'm saying we need to just demonstrate that. Because if they are, Brian's pertinent point is, well, once you've done that, everything's there. It's done. But you've then got to work with straight light. You can't then have your light bending at 7/6R after you've already bent the world at 7/6. Is that right, Brian?
Well, my point being is that in the Black Swan photograph from a 1 foot observer height, the horizon has to be prior to the oil rigs. So if infinite over 6R is added to that observation, and it puts the horizon 10 miles away, then the oil rigs must also be past 10 miles. They must also be past that horizon.
Right. You can't stretch the horizon without stretching the distance between you and the oil rigs.
Exactly.
Yeah, I see where you're going with this. Well, let's ask those crayon munchers. They ain't gonna know. Like I told you, they just mindlessly parroted. Where did the 7/6? I'm not using this as a genetic fallacy. I just want to know where it came from to begin with. Is it Andrew Thomas Young's nightmare?
I gotta step in again. Same time as last time.
Oh, brother.
You're gonna need R for that.
Yeah, I know that.
He knows.
Well, can we put a play out then? Dear ballers, are you stretching your ball or are you bending light?
I'm still trying to figure out
I
why.
covered this. Didn't I cover this in the last live show? Right. 7/6R. Right. When it comes to anything maths, right, Adam, you just have to identify your terms, right? In the. You just have to identify what's in there, right? We know
And
what 7
it's being
is.
applied to.
We know what over 6 with a 7 means. So what else is left in there? Is it L for light?
Radius.
Radius. So
No.
what's it referring to? When you say, has it got anything to do with light? Well, it's quite explicit in the description what it's doing and what it's doing it to.
The default values for the refraction approximation. What does in what they are applying this to a refraction approximation, and that's Brian's point that they can't then go and move everything else, but then everything else has already been moved.
Okay, let me just stop you again. So Anthony did this with Mick West. So Mick West basically says, no, what we are using as an approximation for light bending is 7/6R. That's the simplified description of how light bends. Anthony's response, well, how can you show that that's the case? Where's your references for that? Because in Metabunk's site, when you click on 7/6R in the description with a little blue link, it takes you to stuff that's describing stuff that's been done on a flat plane. So in the same way as Andrew Thomas Young also utilises 7/6R or whatever derivation he wants on that day, he also has to make explicitly clear that the actual refraction demonstrations are all done and measured and referenced to a flat plane. So we're back to, well, where's the link between 7/6R and light bending? There isn't one.
Wow.
No, that's the Arwinian paradox in play again. To define it.
Well, isn't your question then answered, Adam?
No, because that doesn't.
Yeah.
No, because
They
it
made
doesn't.
it up.
That's fine. But once they've made it up, I want to see the detail of what they made up. That's all. I'm not arguing with them. I'm just trying to get better understanding. Not that it makes fundamentally a difference.
You're trying to see into the eyes of a delusional person at this point if they're still arguing it.
Well, just want to see their maths. That's all. I don't want to sit in their shoes.
They don't have any mathematics. See, they claim they have mathematics, and they Jedi mind trick flat earthers into just parroting vaguely, yeah, you got the mathematics. No, they don't. They don't even have that. That's been how many times have I stopped flat earthers on this debate show when they say well, mathematics? I always stop them and say, let's see them. How many times have we seen them by flat earthers or Baltards?
0.
Oh, well, that was the point I made with Rumpus, because when it came to the crunch and to actually deliver reality and match it up with the mathematics, he couldn't do it. But what they do here is this random standard application. Is there, oh yeah, you can just do that and it explains image. Well, the average photo, it might excuse it, but it didn't with the Isle of Man. And that's why there isn't any maths for it, why it doesn't work, because it's not, the maths isn't describing reality. It's trying to explain perspective and distance in terms of curvature. So the maths will never work because it's incorrect. It's not describing the reality.
Exactly.
But that's not my bugbear. just a puzzle, in it? It's a maths puzzle. What they're doing and how they're doing it.
Not a maths puzzle. It's a make-up puzzle. It's a delusional puzzle that you
Well,
want to get in the middle of. You're not going to get an answer to those questions. They're not going to be able to show you where the mathematics, the base mathematics, come from. They're just made up.
Yeah, they don't exist.
Dear ballers, are you bending your ball or bending light? Just please answer on a postcard through
Bending the
Gilded.
ball. It's in the R bit in the 7/6R. It's the R that they're bending.
The R's the amount of bend that they're having to match.
That's your answer. That's your answer.
Yeah. Well, that's always going to be the case. The amount of bend has to be proportionate to how bendy they claim the surface is, so that they can bend it enough so that it resolves like reality, which is flat.
Correct.
So they'll always,
Right, and then if you ask them, they'll feel obliged or will have an explanation like I gave from Rumpus, which is to say that imagine lots of little pieces of glass stacked up on a curved surface, we presuppose, and every time the light traverses it, it's changing the light in accordance to Snell's law. Now, obviously, because the atmospheric gradient will change as the light traverses over a curved surface, that creates the same effect. Then you go, okay, show me. And they can't. Every single claim to be refractive effect will be demonstrated and calculated on a flat plane, without exception. So they just can tell you how they would do it, or how they say 7/6R is how the light bends. But it doesn't change what they're bending. They're bending R. They're increasing the size of the sphere. That's what it actually does.
They're debending. They're debending R.
Debending, if you
No,
will.
I'd have to say
I like
they're not
that.
bending R at all. They're increasing R and debending the circumference from an observer's point of view. 'Cause you
It's
can't bend
all
R.
the same
R
piss
is
in a
straight
different
line.
bottle.
Yeah, you can't debend R because you can't bend it. Point taken. Yeah, that's what Brian said.
yeah. The larger the R, then the smaller the apex is in terms of the hump.
Oh,
for the same
God.
distance.
Can't you just say the highest point?
No, you don't have.
Now
You
you're
have
picking me up on words I'm using. And it's like grammar afternoon.
yeah, he has problems with apex, but no problems with the hump. But at least we understand where the hump is.
I'm going to get the hump in a minute.
Well, let me throw this at you. I asked Mitchell because I didn't know I wasn't sure of the correct way to do it. So I asked Mitchell, because my maths don't be brilliant, could you give me what the radius of the globe would be with 7/6 or added with 7/6? And he gave it to me, and it was 4,618.83 statute miles. Now, how can he give me that and it also be light bending through a medium?
Because you've just decided to apply that 7/6 value to the R. Well, that will give you that. And you do need to do that to calculate the arc path of the light ray.
Yeah, but where
Light ray?
The
where
arc,
in arc?
the arc path of the light ray.
What's that?
Don't start on me. I'm not playing like Baldwin here. I'm just exemplifying their claim. It's not my claim.
It's
But
not
that's what
their
they're
claim
doing.
either. It's not they're using them as a collective. Most of them can't tie their shoes. All of them can't tie their shoes with a fleet of slobber nurses. All they're doing is just making shit up from Wiki Discovery and Andrew Thomas Young. They got no depth with anything. They don't know what refraction is. I'd be shocked if they knew what a fucking radius was.
Yeah, they're actually stating that a radius line can be curved at present. Don't forget.
There you go.
Yeah.
There it is, right there. Then they're what we're dealing with. You know,
I want
Pressure isn't
Sorry.
force; it's force per unit area.
Yeah.
So this is what we have, huh?
What we have? No, there's no French about it. What you're including yourself in here, Neil?
What we have here is a failure to communicate.
Did you say Utes?
These two youths are at the apex.
You know, it might not be a failure to communicate as much as it's a failing of comprehension, because that's what it was for me personally. Was
What
just a
was
lack of comprehension
Lack
on,
of
man.
comprehension of what? What's the what?
of the information that's being put out.
Information. Can you get a little bit more specific?
Like how the claim that Earth is a sphere with a radius value, right? So you're gonna be measuring that when you
No,
talk
you're
about
not.
the horizon. Well, that's
Normal
that's the
people.
claim.
The claim is that they measured it.
It was initially, yeah.
What? Yeah. Who did that?
I believe you cited Al Baruni, but that seems to be a generalized claim too. But I do think Al Baruni was the
Hold
source.
on. Brian said for 200 years they've been saying that it's not a geometric position.
What?
That's what Brian said today. Tell him, Brian.
What the hell is going on here?
I don't know, man. My daughter's caught a wolf and brought it into her Minecraft house.
Jesus. You know, whenever I turn your show on and I see those video games running, on the stream, I have to turn it off.
Why?
I have to go somewhere else.
You're supposed to be listening. It's just an accompaniment for
I
the
am
audio.
listening. I'm not watching. Yes. That's what I meant.
Oh, you mean you have to look away from the screen? You can't bear to watch?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, well, that's fair enough. What would you have been watching anyway?
an old
The
fogey.
slideshow? Do you normally sit transfixed to the slideshow?
Sometimes if I'm not doing anything else at the time, I will watch the graphics to see what's happening. Yes.
But they've been the same graphics for about the last 3 months.
Save for the video games.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Is that helpful? You're telling me because...
Yeah. Okay. That explains it. Yes. Thanks.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to
It's
have an
old people.
overlay on it, right, that'll have Flat Earth debate or whatever. Adam's going to help me with it this week. Probably on sometime after Wednesday, providing tomorrow's show doesn't get crapped up like today's did. Thank you for the kind words, QE. Really appreciate it.
What kind of words were those? Are you being facetious?
Sarcastic as opposed to facetious.
Okay. I stand corrected. Fuck. Oh, the kind words. What kind words? The sarcastic kind words. Which ones were those? On the Ballbusters?
Again.
On Ballbusters? The kind words then? Or the sarcastic kind words just a few seconds ago that I'm unaware of?
Did you have kind words for me on Ballbusters? I was asleep.
Yeah, I seen you right at the end, I think.
Yeah, I did. I woke up and saw that you were about to round out. I didn't know that you were going to round out. I just tuned in and then you rounded out.
Okay. Well, at least you got some rest. You didn't miss all that much. Just pressure isn't a force; it's a force per unit area. That's about sums it up.
I'm going to be back on form from tomorrow. Honestly, this chipset update has really made my day.
That's outstanding. Now you can get back to the 7 hours that you've already missed.
Well, yeah. I mean, I want to get back on. I don't want to concern myself with the crap that I'm doing with the buttons that I press. I want them to just work. And I'm as confident as I've been in the last week that it'll be like that tomorrow. I just want one day under my belt without a single issue. One day. That's all I want.
We can tell you're enthusiastic, and I think you may have solved the issues, not knowing any of the background information or very little. You did provide some information that I'm clearly clueless of. Yeah, and then you can get back to catching up on the 7 hours of Professor. I think he's a professor. He said he taught students, the PhD astronomer, and the ass clown Norm.
Yeah, we'll go back to that stream. It was very amusing. It was like any other QE stream where you pull apart nonsense from a dingbat.
Dingbats in this specific case.
Indeed. Yeah, no, we'll
Anthony,
go back to that.
Anthony
Definitely.
covering his face with his hands is classic.
Oh yeah, it is. That when he was peeking through his fingers, that's my favorite.
That's even funnier.
I haven't got to that yet. How far into that?
But why hasn't that egg flown out of the water into the sky?
Yeah, Nathan, you're gonna love that too, because his question, his overriding question with the other questions that he just had to ask, was in the beginning. Why does the egg stop?
They've been asking.
Go ahead. Sorry.
They've been asking that for a long time. Like when they say if you jump out of a plane, you don't fly upwards. You know, so it's been on their minds for a while.
Are we supposed to?
I'm guessing in their minds, yes.
Or is the egg supposed to continue flying through to the moon?
Yeah, no, well, that's what they think it does. And you got that like I said, the ass clown Norm, he keeps on going back to the train wreck. He thinks as long as you manipulate something, I guess anywhere, this is what it's hard to get inside somebody's head that's so delusional. We can only go by what he says. But he goes back again in number 3. I don't know about number 4, number 5, or number 6, but he goes back in number 3 again. This numpty thinks that if you manipulate something, that automatically makes it an independent variable. So he's going to go back again and say that Professor or PhD Parks changed the filter in his telescope. So that's supposed to mean that he manipulated the filter in the telescope. That means that's the independent variable for the Lux variation in the Andromeda galaxy.
No way.
I'm fucking telling you. He'll just scatterbrain. It'll be right in the middle of a discussion about it could be anything, but he'll bring it back out just unsolicited, just scatterbrain, and say, "Hey, Rob, did you change your filter in your fuckwit telescope?" Yeah. I don't know. If Rob changes his shoes while he's looking through the telescope, is that an independent variable to Norm? You fucking ass clown. My God, are you retarded?
Well, QA, what's wrong with assuming your telescope is causing things in distant galaxies?
I'll tell you what, Mr. Scatterbrain is going to do it again. Like I said, unsolicited. We'll be talking about chasing fucking waterfalls, and this guy is going to bring up that filter change in the damn I keep on saying microscope. telescope to make a point. It's beyond. He says so. Oh, just wait. He says some more stupid shit. I'm not talking about Rob. Rob Park. He's just a bozo. You know, you're just average dumb fuck ball-tard bozo. We deal with them for a long time. But Norm, he's the delusional one. He's the scary one.
Who's the one that took the test in America?
Yeah,
you
Norm.
gotta take this test. That is
Yeah, to
Norm,
be a
right?
retard. Yes. Certifiable retard test. Yes. Oh, and he's in the Navy. Oh, I'm giving the game away. This fucking guy is going to claim. Now, he's not going to make any claims thereof, but he's claiming that he was in the Navy, which he might have, that he was a navigator in the Navy. That's what I'm telling you, he's going to claim.
A navigator.
You know what I'm going to hit him with. He won't respond, though. Rob's keeping track. Rob thinks that I like him or what, because I'm devoting now 7 hours of time that kind of validates his existence or something. I don't fucking know. I think he's moving from bozo to delusional numpty dipshit quick.
Well, in his case, you have validated his existence because his whole existence is centered around you. Well, flat Earth.
I don't know what he thinks is going on here. Is he even listening? I don't know. It's so delusional out there, man. I don't get it. But anyway, to get back to the top, one of your favorite topics is going to be front and center there, Nathan. So you might want to catch the next one, whenever that may be.
Fallacies? Fallacies, by chance?
Say again?
Is it fallacies?
No. Well, it's riddled with fallacies. They're not going to bring up a fallacy topic.
Okay. What are you going to tell me? What's the topic?
You know what? Neil keeps on saying it. In Neil.
Coriolis.
That's my least favorite topic.
Yeah, they're going to bring it up. I like how Rob, too, he doesn't support anything. He just does the Brenda routine of yahas and nah-ahs. If you ever listen to Brenda, now we all know she's delusional, batshit insane. But besides that, any argument that she has or tries to debunk, it's always yahas and nah-ahs. If you listen to Rob, he does the same thing. Yahas and nah-ahs. That's all he does.
Yeah, he seemed to do it from the off with Anthony. Just immediately, and yaha and him straight through the middle of him.
Yes, exactly.
Are they going to say Earth and atmosphere move as one?
I can't recall. No, they fuck it up bad. I mean, just at a basic fundamental level. Because Rob doesn't know. He wouldn't know what Coriolis effect was if it climbed up his arse and started kicking footballs wrapped in concertina wire. Well, of course, you already know this because no baller knows what the Coriolis effect is. I mean, he's going to just come out and just slam that fucking spade shovel right into his own face. Wait till you see it. It's not going to surprise you. But Norm implicitly states that planes fly backwards. He doesn't know it because he's too fucking stupid. But you'll when you hear it, you'll say, "Oh yeah, I remember Q. He told me that."
Oh, he's going down that path, huh? That's going to be fun.
From the inertial frame, it would seem that the plane is flying backwards on a non-inertial turning reference frame.
It would have to if his claim is correct. Yep. But you don't know his claim. You could guess what it is, but
I like that. When that happens, it means that they understand how the Coriolis effect works. And when you take them down the logical inference that their claim has, they have to declare that as you're standing beneath a plane that takes off, you would see it observe from the turning reference frame appearing to go backwards if it's retained the inertia of the plane that it's left. So they literally will say, yeah, from the non-inertial turning reference frame, the plane would look like it's going backwards.
No, from the inertial reference frame, it will look like
My
it's
bad,
going
from the
backwards.
inertial.
I know. Lately I've been mixing those things up. It's driving me absolutely crazy.
I still
The
do it
inertial
occasionally, like I
frame-
just did. And you know me, I've got my head around the inertial and non-inertial reference frames really, really well. And I still occasionally slip it out incorrectly. But it doesn't mean you don't know them. It's easy to mix them up.
Yeah, it is.
But the inertial frame and that description they're trying to give, is that the place that gas would be filling if it existed?
Yeah, the inertial reference frame would be the bit that the plane's left. In other words, it's going into the inertial reference frame, if you will, and you'd be with it, seeing it going backwards, because you're already, if you like, at equilibrium with the inertial reference frame, right? And then you see something that's attached to something spinning, leaving with the force that it's got being retained. Therefore, as you watch it leave, you watch it go backwards.
Right.
But you'd have to be in the sky, like hovering in a hot air balloon or something.
Yes. No. My example was that you're in a hovering helicopter observing an airport runway.
Yeah, exactly. That's even better. So you're in your hovering helicopter and you're watching literally a runway with a plane take off. If their claim is true, they would watch it go backwards.
That was classic when I got him to admit that. You got to admit that was one of the high moments. It's a high moment of my life.
Well, yeah, but again, it's having enough knowledge to be dangerous. It's like you'd be better off not understanding the Coriolis effect and not understanding the non-inertial and inertial reference frames, and you being separate from it when in the inertial reference frame, and your further claim that it's retaining angular momentum. It's like you're making it up as you go along with a reasonable understanding of Coriolis to the point where your claim becomes insane.
Especially the angular momentum part, because if somebody says that, if they're brave enough to say angular momentum, they're train wrecked and flame throwed one more time on top of the already existing train wreck.
But it isn't the claim. That's the bit that frustrates me, and I think it's intentional, because stating that is in essentially defying the original globe claim, isn't it? As insane as it sounds, to say that it's retaining the angular momentum, and then you watching it from the inertial reference frame go backwards, that's in addition and in contravention to the claim of Coriolis effect, because the claim of Coriolis effect has no angular retention of any velocity. It's a not actual effect, an illusion that you observe as you turn beneath things. So it has no connection to anything retaining anything ever, because it's an illusion.
Now, I'm stating that the angular part. Sorry, I didn't.
No, I get that, but that angular part isn't part of the claim. There is no retention of angular anything in a claim of Coriolis effect ever.
Yeah, what I'm saying is the angular. Now, if they just say conserving momentum, then they're okay. Now, if they say they're not okay, that it's a train wreck. That's what I'm saying. That's the base train wreck. But if they say it's retaining angular momentum, that's another level of flame throwing.
Yeah, but I understand that. My point is, though, that the claim that the globe Earth makes is that we'll observe Coriolis effect. It is that simple. Now, the moment you start introducing any sort of retention, regardless of them describing it incorrectly or not, is in contravention to the original globe claim that you will observe Coriolis effect. If the plane takes off and retains some sort of velocity of the ground turning beneath it, you will not see the Coriolis deflection as described by the globe Earth.
It's about reference frames, isn't it?
Yes.
Because basically, to have Coriolis, we need two reference frames.
That's correct.
They fundamentally deny the two in however they want to describe it, incorrectly, with angular momentum, whatever. however they want to attribute that, the function of that is to remove the secondary reference frame, which, as you say, is fundamentally
Against-
the whole principle of Coriolis having the two reference
sharing
frames.
Yeah, exactly. Because the necessary antecedents for the Coriolis effect to exist, there's 4 necessary antecedents. You got to have a non-inertial rotating reference frame, number 1. Number 2, you have to have an inertial reference frame, number 2. Number 3, you have to have an object moving in a straight path in the inertial reference frame. And number 4, you have to have an observer on the non-inertial rotating reference frame looking at the object that's moving in a straight path in the inertial reference frame.
Right.
All those 4 must exist for the Coriolis effect to exist. Follow?
Right, so for Coriolis effect to exist, as described perfectly by QE, you have to have you on the turning reference frame observing something not on the turning reference frame looking like it takes a curved path when it doesn't. That's the effect that's being described with Coriolis and claimed to be a globe Earth effect. Therefore, the moment they start describing what the projectile does, they are violating the claim, because to have the claim, you have to be either the observer or describing the observer who is turning beneath something that isn't affected by you turning beneath it. Now, if they say, well, it's retaining angular, that's not Coriolis.
And is it rotating about its axis? Look, Ma, the hot air balloon is rotating around its center axis.
I was about to say, because if you're talking about an axis, you'll need a radial value, and you can't have a non-inertial turning reference frame without
No,
a
that's not what
radial
he's
value.
saying. What you're correct, but it just want to. What QE's saying is, when they say it, they're talking about retaining an angular momentum, right? Well, that would mean that if you're describing it in that way, you're describing how the item retains the spin value after it leaves the non-inertial turning reference frame. That is to say that if you're describing it with a hot air balloon, right, and you take them at face value when they give you their begurked retention of angular momentum or whatever the abbreviation they use is, right, it would mean that the hot air balloon takes off and retains the angular spin rate of the globe Earth they're claiming. That's 15 degrees an hour turn. So it means that it takes off and keeps turning at that rate. Not that it retains the velocity of the ground, but retains the angular rotation. So therefore, what? It's going to take off and continue to rotate at 15 degrees an hour? It's absurd. They just don't know what they're saying when they say it. But when you put it apart and take it at face value, it means that the thing would take off and start rotating at the same claim to be rotation rate of Earth. There you go.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they don't know what angular momentum is. Is the true belly laugher when somebody says that you know that they have never taken an actual, just a junior high level physics course. That's when you know it. That's when I start laughing. Go ahead, Adam. You've been trying to get in here, trying to fucking rumpus. Go ahead.
He hasn't said a bloody word. He literally just...
Yes, he has. He's been trying to rumpus the whole time. You and me. Go.
Got what I want to say now.
I think he's being very mean to you. He's bullying you.
No, it doesn't matter. No, it's a convolution of what they tried to mug you off with, which is that angular conservation of angular momentum and linear momentum. Now, even if you allow the linear and allow that to play out so that you can keeping up with the spinning 1,000 miles an hour,
right?
Still going in a straight line at this point. So your retained momentum is in a straight line the moment you leave the reference frame. So you're still in a separate reference frame. This is where they get part of their dislocated differential Coriolis effects from. But still fundamentally, that there is that nonsense that the plane's flying 1,000 miles an hour backwards to maintain that mathematics.
Exactly. Yeah, thanks, Adam.
Pleasure.
I thought we already went over that when I used Danny.
No, I was just making the point that between the two, because they'll often conflate it into conservation of angular momentum, meaning it's going to keep orbiting, basically.
No spinning.
No,
Well, that's
no, but that's
the thing.
it's that convolution, isn't it? But for them, the actual real world, not real world, the ball world explanation of what's happening is it goes into orbit a foot off the ground, doesn't it? That's what's happening. If your balloon takes off, because it's still going 1,000 miles an hour, so it's basically orbiting in geostationary orbit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, why don't they claim orbital momentum and then they can just beg the question of the ball? Like, why not just go that route?
It's batshit insane. Either way they go, they're showing that they have no idea what conservation laws are. It's truly a carnival tent fucking circus show. So whenever you hear angular or linear momentum from a ball tard's perspective, look, he's greasing the skids. You're about ready to get screwed. And most flat earthers, they'll just go right along with it. That's what pisses me off.
What are you showing us?
About anyone on this.
Who's presenting? Is it Adam?
Yeah.
It looks like Sydney Opera House.
It's not. It's.
Can you talk into your mic?
It's an oil tanker. This is the other page of the Metabunk, so you can go into the detail of the refraction calculator. I'll just put it a bit further away so we've got a bit of obstruction. If you look at this top line here, you'll see the red lines, the purple lines, which are the lines of light that are traveling back to the observer or from the observer to the thing as it looks in this orthographic view. And this is the point, this is an orthographic calculation. But if you look at them, you can see they're bent. And if you check the options up here, look, I can get rid of standard 7/6R and it'll, look, see what happens. They don't change the R value. The ball stays the same, but the position of the light rays, which is what this is doing, it is what alters. So this is how I say I've understood how they calculate it. Look, because this is part of it, but how they get those numbers, not sure. But that does appear to be, to me, look, if you can see that what they're doing is bending this at a rate. No. So the radial value of the arc, see this would form a much bigger circle around, not with the same center point. What it's got is the same starting point. So this will be, you've got your standard ball circle, and then around it, this one will go, look, at this rate all the way around and form a much bigger circle where the gap will be at its biggest at the bottom of the circle and it still meets at the tangent at the top. So that's what the 7/6 application of the light ray means to me. That's how it diverges still. It's not diverging. If we go to flat Earth, look, you see it's just diverging straight. Well, it's bending with a little bit of that refraction. That's a bad example. But if we went to the standard way in which the light would be going, it'd just be going straight off like that, as opposed to this apologetic. So that's my point, right? Is that, to me, that's the way they're calculating this excuse.
Yeah, I debunked that very easily. I'll show you what it is right now. See the way they're using those red lines to insert a bigger sphere, basically insert straightening out the curve, which means that they're actually increasing the radius value. But in this diagram, they're keeping the green sphere the same size. See that yellow line coming straight up from the surface of the sphere up to that intersecting blue line. See that line there? That straight one. Now, that should be pointing towards the center of their globe. not coming straight up.
No,
If
that
you
was
measure
it.
the distance, if you measure the distance along the arc of that green, from the red there along the green sphere to the base of that yellow, let's say spire or whatever it is, that will be greater than the distance along that blue line from that red origin to that yellow spire. So initially, even from here, that yellow spire should be going to the center of the globe and pointing out and intersecting that blue line further out on that blue line. Now, the more that they try and straighten out those red lines, then that would mean that their surface is actually straightening out, which means that that yellow line has to intersect further along to the right. It has to intersect further along to the right. They're cheating here, but they're bringing a straight line up from a point on an arc up to a straight line. For a start, that's the wrong distance, even just for that arc, because as I said, if you make that a zenith on a sphere, then that has to go to its center and come out and meet that blue line out further. So if you increase the size of that globe, then that's going to keep on meeting that line out further to the right. This is nonsense. This is not. See, where is the R value in this? Where is the R value? That's the thing. Where is the change in the R value? There's no change in the R. They haven't actually added R in any of this. So there's no 7/6 R being added. They're given a visual representation that is flawed and not conducive with 7/6 R, which is the claim.
The 7/6 R is these lines, all these lines that are not straight, but are not bent at 1R, they're bent at 7/6R. That's where the 7/6. So can you see this is what I'm saying? All these circles, all this the straight circle, the first one, yeah, that goes around the ball at the top. It's a bigger ball with a 7/6R. And I agree with you. This is an error, because what you need is like it shows in the other metabunk, it needs to be sticking out that way at whatever that angular distance at this 15 miles. So 15 times, what's that? Just call it 10 miles. It would be 0.9 something. Or was it 0.1 of a degree? So it's only going to be a 0.1 of a degree angle difference even in this image. So it'd be there sort of thing, because obviously this is all exaggerated, that amount of curvature. So you'd be looking at a 0.1 degree variance there. So whatever 0.1 degree, that would be your distance. So you're right. It's an error. There's another error in there. Approximate calculation. It would be skewed off slightly. 0.014 degrees, if my memory serves me correct, per mile. That's going to tilt back, which would, like you say, by add extra distance.
Yeah, you can't straighten out the sphere and keep it as a sphere. You can either make it straight and horizontal or increase the size of the sphere. So 7/6R can't be a straightening out of a sphere because there's no R value then. You can't apply an R value to a horizontal line, if you know what I mean, under those circumstances. If you're taking away the circle, taking away the sphere, then you can't apply an R value. But they are claiming 7/6R. And Ruhif did do this when he was debating John in his presentation. He created a bigger sphere, and he admitted to it, if I remember correctly, within that debate, for the purpose of the debate.
Well, then he's off canon then. Isn't he?
Yeah, that's how you describe
it.
it. Off canon. That's a very good way of putting it. Not in line with the heliocentric nonsense that they're actually punting.
My point being is, where is R in any of this? What we're looking at here, where is the R? How can you have an R value based on light? You can't. An R is only based on a circle or a sphere. So a change in that R has to be a change in the size of the circle or the sphere. It can't be. It's not light. You can't add an R value to light. If you understand what I mean.
My only point is, I agree that that's what they're doing.
Yeah, but they're not working within their own math.
No,
their
and
own
that's
globe
what
math.
you've. That's what's took us this long to figure out. Basically, that Rufy's now off script, isn't he? If he's, as you're saying, doing that, then that doesn't appear to be commensurate with canon.
Yeah, no. I see this. See this thing you have here. This is not canon because you're not changing the position of the horizon with this diagram. The horizon from a 1 foot observer height is not going to go from 1.23 miles to 1.32 miles with this diagram. You're not changing the position of the horizon with this diagram. This diagram is flawed. This is, I would call this a farce.
I would say
because you can't change the position of the horizon with this.
No, the horizon stays at its fixed geometric point. The reason you see further over it is because the light is bending over the hump instead of going in a straight line because of standard atmospheric refraction. If I take it off, look where the light lines go. Yeah, so this is no standard atmospheric refraction. No, 7/6R is applied to the light rays. Now, when you apply 7/6R, so that is the path that they take instead of a straight path, they're going in a circle, not as small a circle as the ball Earth, but a circle of 7/6 size. So you can see it does diverge, but at a much slower rate than a straight line would. So that's the rate of diversion of a straight line from your ball with just a little bit of refraction. Let's take the refraction off. There we go. So that's the rate of divergence with just what we would call movement in the air. I'm gonna say that's what they've approximated. And then this is with your 7/6. That's the path that all light will take when it leaves its source. Nonsense, but that's the maths of what they're claiming, as best as I can understand it. Look at that bendy line.
So in that diagram, it'll never intersect with the Earth to create a horizon. Is that their claim?
No, because look at where you're coming at. All of this intersection's up here. The point at which the first bendy line, this purple one or blue one, look, intersects is at this point here, this integer here, right? So that's saying that all of this bit underneath is obscured. Can't see below that blue line. Saying the reason that the boat in this lower picture, look, that's all you can see, is because of this physical obstruction here and the way it plays out. Now you see a little bit more. If I take the standard off, if you, yeah, see if you would, without 7/6, you've without this bendy light, you see just the top of the ship, look, but with it, you see that little bit more. And that's all they're bringing in when they put 7/6 in. It's only a small amount, look, because it's still bending in relation to it, but just it does diverge slightly. But at shorter distances, you see, that divergence is minimal, as you can see demonstrated here at 1 foot observer and 15 miles. It's minimal in the numbers, but it's still there. And the point being the way in which they do it, look. I can see a little bit, look at that. You can see below, look, you see, this is how much you can see below a straight line. Look at that's quite a lot, isn't it? So,
but that's just a hijacking of a eye line dip to the horizon. That's all that is there. I would call this a completely false equivalency to what 7/6R is, because they're trying to increase the size of the sphere without showing the sphere increasing in size. You understand? This is what they're doing here. If you change the refraction, if you change the sorry, not refraction, but the 7/6R rate, or that ratio. If you change that ratio, they're not changing the globe itself. Whereas they have to. There's no R value. They're changing the R value. If you look at this black bit that comes up over the globe here, they're basically claiming in the background that the globe is getting bigger, but they're trying to pretend that they're not claiming that. But that is how it actually works. They actually make the globe physically bigger, because you can't use an R value with a horizontal. Or how do you have a constant or with an ellipsoid? Because that's basically what they're going into there. Then, if it's not a sphere, you can't have a constant or. This to me is just Metabunk messing around, trying to basically build a false equivalency to hide what the claim really is.
Which is that a hill gets in the way, marked with an X, labelled horizon, claimed to be blocking boats, buildings, the Isle of Man. Debunked by the Black Swan, 1st Jan 2020.
Yeah,
That's physical hill there, look, that's stopping you seeing the top of the ship. Let me bring the ship a bit closer to shore. You see, that's the physical hill. Look, as we get further away from the ship, the hill obscures more and more because it's the ship's further down the other side of the hill. That's their claim.
Yeah, but you're missing something. The horizon. The horizon in their diagram is not changing its position. The horizon has to. What they're doing is bringing a ship below a horizontal.
No, so that's what I'm saying. In the maths, even though they've put this geometric horizon, the way in which they calculate it, they don't move the horizon. They give an approximate calculated equivalence of where the horizon has now moved to with respect to how much further down the pole you can see. So it's not actually, because it's just a mathematical apparent refracted horizon. Yeah, it doesn't exist because none of this exists. So when they describe it, all it's actually saying is how much further down the pole you can see because the way in which the light is bending. So the image you render means you see a flat image that would be equivalent to a ball translation of having the horizon at 1.32 instead of 1.23. But that's all they're saying there in terms of it's just the relative position of where you see on the stick. And then the horizon is approximate. And then that horizon thing is then back calculated to say what its refracted position would be with regards to how much you can see because of the obstruction. That seems to me be what that works, how they work that bit out.
Bring the ship closer and make it bigger, and then bring it further away again, if you don't mind.
Right.
Please. So there's the ship, right? Now,
what have I done? Oh, wait there, Brian. Done something back. Right. Let me go forward. There we go. Right. What was it do? Make it bigger and smaller again, yeah? So it's sat on the horizon. It's still on the horizon. Still on the horizon.
1 second. Hold it a second. So there is the ship, right?
Yep.
As the horizon changes its position, right, the ship gets further away. Their claim right now, not that they didn't annihilate themselves with their claim of a refracted horizon, because that's not geometric then, with the Black Swan, was that 7/6R caused the horizon, or greater than 7/6R, infinite over 6R, caused the horizon to be way past the oil rigs. But the oil rigs aren't changing in position, whereas the ship has to change in position. As the further away the horizon goes, that's what they're trying to depict there, the ship is further away. And bit by bit, the ship gets smaller and goes down behind the horizon. That's what they're trying to depict here. Whereas in the Black Swan and all our real world observations, we don't see that. The distance between the observer and the observed object or location doesn't change. The horizon changes position, but the object doesn't change. And the oil rigs are a perfect example of that. So this doesn't happen with the oil rigs. That was my point. They also have an angle of side change going on here, which is not possible to have on the globe. That globe's orthographic only. So no perspective accounted for. So this is another cheat because they're adding an angular size change. Where are they adding an angular size change? That doesn't exist within globe maths. So this is all cheating.
Well, that I would agree with. As I said early on, this is all orthographic. Remember, this is an orthographic way, to use curvature to represent the effects of perspective, and that's what's happening. Fundamentally, they use orthographics and curve to match up to the effects of taking a picture from reality and how perspective plays out. It is all bunkum.
Yeah, but they're hijacking perspective here, right, which is not part of their model whatsoever. They're showing it both changing in angular size, and they're showing it getting further away as the horizon increases its distance from the observer. Now, that doesn't happen with the oil rigs. The horizon is behind the oil rigs. The oil rigs don't move their position. They're still 6.4 and 9.21, whatever, miles away from the shore. That is not happening with the oil rigs. It's happening with the boat, but not the oil rigs. That's the point. So if the horizon moves, everything that's behind the horizon on a globe has to also move with it. You can't change the position of the horizon and keep everything else in the same position. That's the point.
I don't know what your point is. I'm lost now.
In the black swan image, we have oil rigs that on a globe would be, from a 1 foot observer height, would be behind the horizon. So the horizon would be prior, the geometric horizon would be prior to, or the refracted horizon would be, their initial refracted 7/6 horizon would be prior to the oil rigs. They tried to claim that it was an infinite over 6 refraction that causes the horizon to be beyond the oil rigs. But that would mean that the oil rigs would have to move as well. The oil rigs could not stay in the same location. If the horizon is being stretched out further from the observer, then all objects that are supposed to be behind that have to go with that. They have to also be. It doesn't matter if you're making it horizontal, those oil rigs must be past that horizon. Within that claim, those oil rigs have to be past that horizon. Just like that boat has to, even though they're showing an angular size change, which is cheating, but the fact that the boat has to get further away, that has to happen. The boat can never be prior to the horizon. It always has to be post-horizon. Can't be pre-horizon. So if the oil rigs are post-horizon, as from a 1 foot observer height, according to globe mathematics, the oil rigs have to be post-horizon. They can't be pre-horizon when you move the horizon out further. They have to also go past. They also have to move with the horizon. They can't be pre-horizon at one point and post-horizon at another point. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
I don't. Can you explain? I'm confused. I'm not being obstropolous, Brian. I'm a bit lost, man.
I know. If you, hypothetically, if we're on a globe and you're at 1 foot observer height, like BLMSB 69 was, and he's looking at those oil rigs, he has to have an horizon, a geometric horizon between him and the oil rigs. Now, even if they add 7/6, it's still only 1.32 miles. So even their starting refracted horizon is still between him and the oil rigs. But their claim was that it's an infinite over 6 refraction, which brought the horizon way back, but it didn't move the oil rigs. If the horizon is moving back, the oil rigs have to move at the same time and the same rate, I have to say the word rate here, as the horizon moves away from the observer. You can't have a position where the horizon is pre-oil rigs, and then because you need it to be, it can be post-oil rigs. It can't be before the oil rigs and then be beyond the oil rigs. It can't do that. It can't do that within their globe claims. That can't happen within their claims. With 7/6 or any other infinite over 6. The oil rigs also have to be brought back. That's the claim. You can't have a situation where the oil rigs can just stay in place and the horizon just moves around. They're supposed to be beyond Earth core from a 1 foot observer height. That's the whole point. If you understand.
Brian, You know it's refracted with respect to the oil rig, right?
Well, it's with respect to the horizon. The the oil rigs are supposed to be within their claim beyond the horizon, and they can't stretch the horizon out to 10, 15, whatever amount, about 20 miles away it is, and keep the oil rigs the same distance from the shore. You can't. That's not within that claim. Even Metabunk here are showing it that it can't. The horizon in any of these is not going past the objects. The objects aren't staying in the same position, and the horizon is moving past them. That is not happening within this claim.
Well, how would we explain this on a globe Earth?
Explain what? Explain that.
Well, you know, like that's how they look at everything, though. Like what you're trying to explain right now, they would just say, well, "How would I explain this?"
Oh, sorry for cutting in. I just caught your question. I understood it now. No, you can't. You can't. There is no explanation for the horizon being beyond the oil rig. There is no explanation for that. It can't be explained. That's the killer of it. You can't. It can't. Even with infinite over 6R, it only changes the horizon position within your. Even infinite over 6R is the best you can say, and that only involves and that's only because they have to. They can only address the horizon. They can't address the oil rigs then. The oil rigs have to move with the horizon. There is no explanation possible, and there never will be, for the horizon being past the oil rig. That is the whole point of the black swan.
That's a pretty good conclusion.
Yeah, duh. Yeah. That's kind of why I came up with the argument.
Yes, I know that.
But as far as conclusions go, that's a pretty good one.
Well, it is, because their claim of refraction, what they're calling refraction, which is not refraction, would mean that the oil rigs have to move as well. We don't see that. Like the oil rigs, as the horizon changes its position, the oil rigs have to change that position also.
See, that was well, the strength is probably the wrong word. That was part of the strengths of the Rumpus' previous argument. Why they went to chaos when the horizon moves as well, they're really struggling because there's nothing wrong with saying refraction builds it all up behind it in some amazing holographic way. That's plausible. But if you're going to then move,
No, it's not.
I know it's not plausible. But that was the line they were. That was the line they were painting before. You could tell it was refracted because of its position with respect to the horizon. They still had this fixed globe point. Isle of Man destroyed that, yeah, and they went to moving the horizon as well. But in doing that, it lays out so many further problems. Fundamentally, is what Brian's saying is, well, as soon as that happens, then everything stays behind the horizon, always. Because once you refract the horizon, you refract everything else with respect to it, well, then all you've done is you see a little bit further and the horizon renders 0.1 of a mile further away from you, but everything renders the same, as opposed to everything rendering with respect to the horizon if it's refracted.
That's a good joke. When you refract the horizon, that is a paradox. But you can't refract horizons. They don't know what refraction is. That's where it boils down to. That's why I always say define refraction. Not to you, but you know.
Yeah, but that was that came out of Isle of Man, wasn't it? Because Trump was
remember 5A?
Hmm?
Remember your favorite 5A.
The parallel, they do the light ray paradox. Is it Andrew Thomas Young?
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, yeah, there is no such thing as rays. But see, that's the distractor. That's the headline, which is easy to work with. But the bit I really loved was the detail. That if you permit all of this and describe it like this, there are no stratified layers that create this effect of 7/6 Snell's law, terrestrial refraction. It's just beautifully hidden in there. But anyway.
Would that be the subterfuge of the apex?
You call that beauty?
I thought it was beautiful. That's like getting out the really, really bad news in the detail, isn't it? In the bit that nobody wants to read, you've read past the headline. But there's the chewy bit.
Where the actual substance of the article destroys the headline?
Yeah.
You gotta love it when that happens.
Yeah. By a priest of their religion. That's the thing. It's like what's it like? No, I've not got a good analogy.
But he did say later on that even though he did all of his studies on a flat plane, we know Earth's not flat. So that excuses everything, doesn't it?
Boy, it sure would be fun to have Andrew Thomas Young show up on one of these. It'd just be a massacre.
Well, that's where I pipe up. So yeah, hopefully we'll start poking the bear a little bit more. And the fact that I haven't had a proper link to join for a couple of weeks probably is not helped things. But like with the sting from Globebusters 3 or 4 years ago, the recent sting from Jeranism has now worn off. And as long as I can keep my head focused on the show, there's no reason why poking a few bears won't result in them, feeling the need to correct us on our nonsense that they've deluded themselves into thinking is correct. So I don't see any reason why things like that might not happen.
Oh, there ain't no forgetting about Jaren and Wits It Gets It. There ain't no forgetting. By the way,
that's
I
not what I
will
was
be
suggesting.
reminding everyone.
I wasn't suggesting we should forget.
Maybe
There ain't no forgetting.
That's what I said.
You forgot Bob.
Did they come up with the definitions of what they're supposed to?
Thanks for that. Thanks for that. How would you call it? Prop. What do you call those?
Prompt.
Not prompts, not props.
Advertisement.
Plug. Advertisement. Same thing. Yeah, we're still waiting for. Thanks, Nathan. Electromagnetism. We need the definitions for these. Electromagnetism, electrostatics, electricity, static electricity, electrifa, and electripa, and magnetism. Forgot that one.
Excuse me. Hold up. And ether, of course.
Yeah, we forgot all about the little itty bitty ether. Yeah, we'd like you to define that. It's probably changed since the last time you attempted to define it, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll round out on that note. So with that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Gilded, limited though it was in this particular show, and of course G Plus Panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you tuning in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, or if you're watching this as a member, thank you very much indeed for smashing, liking, all of that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!